Hello everyone and welcome to my introductory video on learning how to use MATLAB for your numerical methods course. I am Edgar Torres and I will be making a series of videos explaining a lot of the common questions and all of the typical confusions and problems I see when people are taking the numerical methods course here. My focus for these videos is that I will be teaching you how to learn MATLAB. So I will be teaching you certain basics that usually I see students struggle with. It is really important for you to be really focused on learning how to use MATLAB this first part of the course because everything that you learn at the beginning will be really important for the second half of the course. So it's really important that you learn how to use the software, and I would like to help you as most as possible to make sure you're ready for that. So for this video, I want to just do a very simple introduction. All I'm going to teach you is I'm just going to show you a little bit around MATLAB. So right now, what you see right here, this should be probably the first thing you see when you first open MATLAB for the first time. So right here, we can see three different windows. This is the current folder, this is the command window, and this right here is the workspace. So your current folder. Whenever you're dealing with MATLAB, you're going to be having what's known as MATLAB files. So right here, this is the current folder that MATLAB is using to find files that you have saved. If you want to change it, all you have to do is just go up here and set the directory you want. Or you can just use the default one. It really isn't much of a problem. So this right here, this is the command window. So right here, what you can do is you can input very basic commands into MATLAB and it will interpret them. For right now, you can think of this as kind of like a fancy calculator. So for example, if I come here and I type 1 plus 1, you can see that it calculates it. And you can try, for example, anything you can find in the basic calculator. Of course, MATLAB can do it. So you can do multiplication with an asterisk, division with a slash, addition with a plus sign, and subtraction with a minus sign. MATLAB also offers a lot of built-in functions. So for example, we have sine, cosine, and tangent. It has all of your trig functions. It has an absolute function. It has an exponential function. And it has a logarithmic function. Later on, we'll be going over a lot of the built-in functions that MATLAB has. But right now, I want to show you like the typical stuff that you can find in your average calculator. If you want to do exponentials, you can use the caret symbol. So if I do 5 squared, as you can see, we get 25. MATLAB also has built-in three special values that might come in useful and handy. Typing in pi will just give you pi. Typing in rand will type in a random number between 0 and 1. And typing in the letter I will give you a imaginary number. So for example, if you would like to use any of these, you can do something simple as 2 times pi. So you can pretend that pi is kind of like a value and MATLAB just accepts it. If you want to work with complex numbers, because for example, let's say we want to solve 5 plus 6i times 3 plus 2 times I. As you can see, MATLAB can do it's also capable of doing complex calculations. So anything that your standard calculator can do, MATLAB is able to do it. So to start off, I suggest that you play around with the command window. If you want to get yourself familiar with MATLAB, what I suggest is that if you have any calculator with you, either like your TI calculators or an Inspire, I would like for you to get your calculator and see pretty much all of the features and how you can use them in MATLAB. So for example, I will be talking about this a little bit more later, but for example, with my calculator that I have right here, you can do an absolute value. So typically in my Inspire that I have right here in front of me, this is how you would do an absolute value, but in MATLAB, you would just do it like this. It will take a little bit getting used to, especially, as you're getting yourself used to MATLAB. But I think this is a really good step for you to start with. So if you do have any calculator As you suggest a engineering or scientific calculator, search any features that you're used to using there and figure out how to use it in MATLAB. That way you're more comfortable with using this program. I would also like to show you, besides the command window, a couple of other things in the software that you should also get a little bit more used to. I would like to show you this window, which is the workspace. What the workspace is that it will show a list of all the variables you have created, and we will get a little bit later what a variable is. And it will show you this list of variables along with their values. So as you can see right here, the only one we have available is ANS, that stands for answer. And as you can see, we have been setting answer this whole time. So answer is just a default variable that gets created whenever you use the command window. So don't worry too much about this, but later on we will talk about more how to create variables. So the very first thing that you're probably going to be doing with MATLAB is clicking this button right here. This is the new script button. And if you click it, will get something like this. So what is a script? So think about it like this. Let's say that for an English class or a composition class, you're assigned to create an essay. So typically you would probably open Microsoft Word, and then from there in Microsoft Word, you would have all of your typical features, right? Where you can select fonts, if you want it in bold, color. And once you're done writing your essay, you need to save it somewhere. You need to save it into a file. So you can think of scripts as something like that. Instead, we're now creating calculations. So for example, let's say you create some script. I'm just going to create something very simple. Don't worry too much about this. And you create some type of script. What you can do is you can save it, and this will open up a save dialog. Right now you cannot see it, but all you have to do is just save your file. And as you can see, it's now popping up in my current folder because I've saved it in the folder that I have set right here. So as you create more files, you will notice that your files in your current folder will continue to increase. And at any time, you can just come right here, double click them, and it opens the file. And from here, you can do certain stuff, like for example, if you want to rename it, you can just do it through here. And there we go. So right now, especially if right now you're beginning with the class, I want you to just play around with the software, and I just want you to just see what certain buttons are. So right now, of course, when you're looking at new software, it might be a little bit scary and a little bit confusing, seeing, a lot of features all of a sudden. But if you want to get yourself familiarized, the beginning of the course is where you want to do it. And of course, a lot of these buttons are probably you're not going to be using. So for example, you shouldn't be worrying too much about live scripts. You shouldn't be worrying too much about these buttons. For sure, you're not going to be using Simulink. You probably don't have to worry about add-ons. Um, some of these maybe you would like to mess around with, but they're not too important. One button that I would like to show you a lot is this one right here, the run. So this button, the editor, only appears when you're in a script. So for example, if I close this down, you see how I only have home, plots, and apps. So if once I open a script, because remember, this is a command window, this is a script. And if again, to denote the difference, a command window is simply a window in which you can just drop basic commands, like 1+1. A script window is like when you're writing your essay. So this is what's actually being saved, and you can, share your code with other people. So once you're in a script, you have the option for these three buttons. The run button will execute the script. So as you can see right now, you can see my workspace change. And again, we will be discussing this a little bit more in another video. Right here, you can do certain stuff. Like for example, you can do smart indenting. You can create comments through buttons here. And you can also use breakpoints to do some more debugging, although don't worry too much about this. If you want to learn about them, I will probably be talking them in a different video. but they're not a full necessity. Another button that I would also really like to show you is the publish. So right here, you see this right here, publish, and if you click in this little arrow, you can see edit publishing options. So let's try clicking on this. So right here, this is what is known as the publishing options. So you're going to be using this window a lot. What publishing is that once you're finished writing some code and you want to turn it into your professor, the publishing options will make sure that it gets saved and it will also convert it to a PDF. And typically your professors will only accept your code as PDFs. So you can think about this as exporting your code, tidying it up, and sending to your professor like if you would be, already sending an essay to a professor. In order to do this, first you want to change the file format. So if I click here, we can get the PDF options. And then from here, you can choose where to save it. So for right now, I'm just going to save it in this folder. And you don't have to mess with any of this. Then I'm going to click publish. Depending on how long your code is, it will probably take a few seconds, maybe a minute. So just let it run too. So as you can see, after it's done publishing, you can see the PDF has been created. So this is what you would turn into your professors if they ever ask you to turn in any type of code. You do not want to turn in an M file and you do not want to turn in an HTML file. Of course, unless if your professor says so, but typically they will ask for PDFs. There is one last thing I would also like to show you, and that is that you can customize how your MATLAB looks. So if we go right here, we can see the layout button and we can choose between a couple of different presets. So for example, right now we're using the default. You can click around and change how your MATLAB looks a bit. So for example, if you want something a little bit extra like this, you have that option. You can also show certain stuff and hide. So if you're missing any windows, make sure to look here and make sure that everything is showing. Your four important windows is your current folder, your editor, your workspace, your command window. Personally, for me, what I like to do is I just like having everything just shoved in one side like this because I don't have a very large screen. And then I just drag this because you can drag it. And there we go. So this is how you're going to be this is how you're going to be seeing my MATLAB in future videos. And of course, you can customize it in any way that you feel comfortable. So if you want to have your own personal layout, feel free to mess around and change it in however you want. And with that, I will wrap out this first video. So just as a little bit of a reminder, if you're still a little bit confused on how to use MATLAB, I'm going to show you again the important buttons. So the first one right here is the new script. This is what you use to create a new script. If you don't have anything open, when you click new script, your editor windows opens. You can use the layout button to change how your MATLAB looks. If you're ever lost, you can always go back to default and everything should be back to normal. You can use the open button to open up other files that you have open. You can also see recent files. So again, this editor, publish, and view only appears when you have an editor open. So if I were to go here, do open, then these three windows appear. In the editor, the important buttons is again the new and only the script. You don't really have to worry much about these right here. The save button, because you want to save your files. The run button, this is what allows you to run your scripts. And finally, in the publish tab, the edit publishing options. Make sure you click this button and not just click directly this one, because by default, MATLAB will save stuff as HTMLs and you don't really want that. Make sure they're PDFs. So yes, those are the important buttons that you need to worry about. So what I would encourage you is to open up MATLAB and start exploring these menus so you can get yourself a little bit accustomed to them because you're going to be using MATLAB a lot for this course. So it's better to start getting used to it now than later. As a bit of a homework, again, you can do what I suggested a little bit earlier, where if you have any calculator with you, I want you to grab it and find ways to convert what you would normally do in your hand calculator and instead do it in MATLAB. The faster you can get used to using MATLAB, the better. And make sure you don't procrastinate on this because you have very little time to learn how to use MATLAB. You would only have up to the first exam, and then after that, you're expected to fairly know how to work MATLAB, which isn't really a lot of time. So start now and make sure you don't start before the exam. Otherwise, you will be really, really lost. So yes, thank you for watching this video. If you need any other questions, you can always ask your professor, or you can always ask the tutoring center for help with numerical methods. You can access the science lab, which does allow tutoring for engineering classes. And with that, thank you for watching. Goodbye.